The purpose of this video is to help you figure out how to use if statements in Microsoft Excel. So we have a simple spreadsheet set up here to calculate bonus and commission rates for different salespeople in different sales areas. So first, let's go ahead and do some basic rules. Right? First rule, we're going to say if sales are over 10,000, there's going to be a 2% bonus, otherwise no bonus. So I'm going to put the value here in this cell and have my sales in the first column. So first we're going to do our if statement, if. And we notice here, I'm going to put a bunch of spaces in so it's a little bit easier to read, but you don't actually have to put any spaces at all. There's three parts to our if statement, and you can see them in the little tooltip here. First is the test. In other words, true or false. Is something true or something false? If it's true, our if statement will return this piece. If it's not, it's going to return this piece right here. So let's do our first test. We're going to say if A2 is greater than 10,000, and then put a comma in. And again, I do some spaces to make it a little bit easier to see where things are, but you don't have to. So if this is true, I'm going to return a value. I'm going to return 0.02. In other words, the commission for the salesperson if they get a sales bonus. And if not, it's going to return a 0. Now, if you look at my statement here, we see that it starts with the open parentheses and it closes with the closed parentheses. And then each of the pieces is separated by a comma. That's how Excel kind of figures out what each piece is. So I go ahead and click OK, copy it down, and you see this working just like it should. 10,000 gets hit right here, so anything greater than, so that means 11,000 and 12,000 now have a 2% sales bonus. And as I come in here and change something, if I make a really big number here, you see that it goes ahead and updates the result. Let's do another one. Let's say if California then have a 5% rate, otherwise have a 2% rate. So we're going to do our if statement, and now we're going to compare text. So we're going to do B2, if B2 equals CA. Now if I just write CA, Excel gets a little bit confused. It thinks that CA is something like a reference to a cell or a formula or some sort of named cell. In order to tell Excel I wanted to compare it to a string, I'm going to wrap it in quotes. Alright, so now it says if B2 equals CA, I do a comma and I say the true value is going to be 0.05 and the false value is going to be 0.02. So anytime B2 equals California, return 5%, otherwise return 2%. I copy it down, and now it's in pretty good shape. Now this could be a little bit more complex as well. Let's say that if California have 0.05, or maybe Texas or California 0.05, everything else 0.02. I can now take what's called an OR function. Basically what this is going to do is I say if B2 equals Texas or B2 equals California. If either of these two things are true, then the whole function is going to be true. So I see now I have my big if statement wrapping the entire thing. So this parenthesis matches with that parenthesis there. Inside of the condition, I have this new function called OR. Inside of OR, we've got two pieces, and you can have 2, 3, 4, any more that you want. So it says if B2 equals Texas, true or false. If B2 equals California, true or false. If any of these listed here are true, then the whole thing is true. If I do an AND, it requires all of them to be true in order for the whole thing to be true. So I definitely want an OR here. I do an OR, I copy it down, and now anything that's California or Texas is now going to be 5%. And my Oregon is going to be 2% like it's supposed to be here. All right, let's do another one. Let's say we have some sort of really complex rule about people. So Bob is going to get a 2% commission, Don a 1% commission, and Sarah a 3% commission. There's a couple ways we can write this. We'll do it the simplest way first, and I'll show you an alternative in a minute. So let's first say if E2 equals Bob. And again, I have to wrap it in those quotes in order for it to work properly. And notice the two that they're double quote markers. It's not an apostrophe symbol. Alright, so if ET equals Bob, then he's going to have a base commission of 0.02, otherwise a base commission of 0. Now I have 3 people though, so I can't really use an OR here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to say plus and do a whole other condition. If E2 equals Don, then 0.02, otherwise 0. And I'm going to have one for Sarah as well. If E2 equals Sarah, then 0.03, otherwise 0. Now the nice way of doing this is that it makes it really easy to understand each piece. So if E2 equals Bob, then that first thing is going to be equal to 0.02. The second and third if statements will each evaluate down to 0. 0 plus 0 equals 0. So it's kind of a nice little way of splitting it into multiple pieces. This is also really nice because it's easy to understand. If you look at each of these if statements by themselves, they're not really nested, they're not really complex, they're really easy to add on to and modify and tweak. So this is one easy way of doing it. An alternative way to do it is what's called nesting. And this generally makes it harder to understand, but sometimes it can be a little bit better. So I'll do the first condition. If E3 equals Bob. If it equals Bob, then 0.02. All right. Now I went ahead and I put the second condition as blank in here because this is going to be another really big statement. What's going to happen in the middle here is I'm going to have a whole nother if statement. I say if E3 equals Don, then 0.01, otherwise 0.03. So now if it equals Bob, it gets this number just gets returned and none of this stuff ever happens. However, if it doesn't have Bob, then it does this whole thing. So it goes into here and says, okay, now does E3 equals Don? If so, 0.01, otherwise 0.03. So you notice this is shorter. It doesn't take as long to write, but it's harder to understand because now you got to match up all the parentheses. So this parenthesis goes to here, and this parenthesis goes to here. So as a result, it's probably a bit cleaner to do the first one in most cases, just because it's easier to understand and maintain. But occasionally, this is a good way to do it by kind of putting them inside of each other. So I'll go ahead, and I want to keep the first one. I'll go ahead and copy that down there. All right, now so far we've been returning numbers for all these if statements. Maybe I want to return a bit of text instead. So let's say this. Let's say if the sales commission is over a certain rate, then we're going to have a nice bit of text. Otherwise, it'll say work harder or something. So let me go ahead and add up these three columns. So add that one to that one to that one for a total commission rate. And then we're going to go ahead and copy that down. And we'll have a personal message over here. So we're going to say if, actually let me go ahead and move this over a little bit. Let's say if G2 is greater than or equal to 0.06, then good job, otherwise work harder. So now if this value is true, then we're going to see this bit of text, otherwise that bit of text. As I copy it down here, I see it updates just like it should. As I come back to change things, like I changed this from Bob to Sarah, you see that it's going to update the person rate, which updates the total commission as well. So the whole thing's working pretty good. Maybe though you just want to have a message to the people who aren't doing very good. One of the ways you can do that is have what's called an empty string. In other words, you just have two quotes. This is going to return a bit of text, but a bit of text that is basically empty. So I copy this down. Now I only have the work harder ones highlighted. So it makes it a little bit easier to kind of scan through and see if there's certain areas that are problematic. Or maybe I want to have something a little bit more complex where I have personal messages to each person. So since Bob is new, I'm going to give him a different message than if Don. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's say first Sarah. If E2 equals Sarah, Sarah's pretty experienced, gets a pretty high commission. So we want her to have sort of just a general message. We're going to say, good work. If it's not Sarah, I just want it to be blank. Now I'm going to use this ampersand. The ampersand is a way of adding text together. Let me do this. If E2 equals Don, then I want to say nope, or just have it be blank. So now I have a slightly more complex condition. Let me scroll to the right here a little bit so you can see that easier. So now if it's Sarah, it's going to say good work. If it's Don, it's going to say not bad. But you notice here I have the false conditions being blank. So what's going to happen here is if it's not Sarah, it's going to give me this. If it's not Don, it's going to give me this. And so as I add these all together, you're going to see that some of them are blank and some of them are not blank. That's because I can add together a bunch of empty strings and have it not be any different than a blank cell. The last thing I can do is maybe I want to have a little bit more conditions for Sarah. If it's Sarah and she has over a certain commission, then it's good work. So what I'll do here is I'll just going to wrap this first one. So instead of just saying E2 equals Sarah, I'm going to put an and here. If E2 equals Sarah and D2 greater than 0.07, then I want it to be good work. And again, you see I have a parenthesis here and here to match for the and. This whole thing together is the condition for Sarah. And if that's all true, it's going to say good work. So we go ahead and hit OK, copy it down, and now it has to be Sarah and the commission has to be greater than 0.07, and then it's going to look the way it's supposed to in order for really some deep nested commissions here. So I hope you saw here a couple basic concepts to keep in mind. One is that you can nest these inside of each other. Another one is you can add them together, whether they're text or whether they're numbers, do each condition separately and then smash all of the results together. But overall, it's a really powerful tool and very helpful.